Well, I think generally people turn towards extreme ideologies because they have extreme grievances they want addressed. Now, those grievances don't have to be real, of course, right? You can have an imagined grievance that moves a person very far to the right. I think, for my money, I think the biggest thing leading to this on-ramping is fear of women. Incel ideology is the big one, but there are hooks all over the place. There's a reason why historically, at least here in the United States, anti brown or anti black sentiment has often been promoted through fear of them being sexually successful with white women, or predatory or whatever else. There's a reason why modern day far right ideology is so obsessed with protecting women from non white people, or getting a girlfriend, or how feminism has ruined women, and so on and so forth. I think that a lot of these guys are very insecure, sexually unsuccessful young men who feel they're entitled to the love of a woman, and they blame a bunch of social forces for denying them what would otherwise be an easy, God given, natural right. So fundamentally, I think insecurity in men is the driving force.
Okay, I understand. In some of your older videos, talking about the alt-right and why people join, you came across a couple of points, and I want to just ask, I want to tell you these things, and I just want you to tell me if you still agree with them, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, you said there are no guarantees in saving them. Some people are just a lost cause just because they're just doomed to fall that way.
Yeah, there's no getting around it. Changing people's minds is a stochastic process, right? You're hoping for percentages. You move over 20, 30, 40% of a population. Individually, there's no guarantee any one person can be moved over, but you should always try because you never know who is immovable and who isn't until, well, until they die, I guess, you know. There's always a chance.
Yeah. And the next thing is you need to recognize the conditions that have led them to those positions that they are now.
Of course, you can't combat any of this without doing that. It's particularly embarrassing seeing the rise of incel ideology from, like, I don't know, 2016, 17, 18 onwards, and seeing basically no people addressing it outside of figures who would kind of cultivate worse aspects of it, like Jordan Peterson, who got a lot of attention, you know, a couple of years ago. Not so much today because he's kind of been lobotomized. But back in the day, he was huge. And he was huge because he would talk about issues that nobody else would talk about. And he would give answers that a lot of people wanted to hear. I'm not saying he was right. I'm just saying that he was willing to address the topics.
Yeah, I see that. I do think back in like 2016, 2017, I myself, I'm including myself in this, but there were quite a lot of people who were more blissfully naive, as like there was a huge generation of new people getting on the internet at like a more mature level than just, going on YouTube and just watching silly stuff and whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot up until recently, I don't think a lot of people on the left or even liberals were aware that the internet was the primary vector by which people get their political info these days. We make fun of Fox News boomers who sit on the couch and get their info from cable TV like dinosaurs, but in reality, the GOP has for years, at the very least since the Trump campaign, made a pretty concerted effort to integrate online sources of info and disinfo spreading into their broader political strategy. I mean, Steve Bannon was doing this stuff before Trump even got elected in 2016, and apparently he was quite good at it. He was going after those incels.
True. The next thing is that most people who join have little to nothing going on in their life and just need some sense of purpose.
Oh, for sure. With basically no exceptions, every time I've learned anything about people in the alt-right, far-right, incel, blah blah crowd, they're like miserable, wretched people. They have very little going on in their lives. They're very unhappy. I say this with sympathy, mind you. A lot of the times their misery actually isn't a product of their bad ideology. We like to believe that when Nazis are miserable, it's because their Nazism has made them miserable. But often, no. It's mounting medical debt. It's social alienation. It's isolation. Sometimes, in fact, quite often online, I would say in my experience, it's neuroatypicality, like autism, making it difficult to interact with other people, which exacerbates those feelings of alienation. In a just world, they would be suffering for their sins, but that's not the one we live in, of course. And I think it's important to be sympathetic to the underlying causes here without being sympathetic to the ideology itself.
Yeah. Next one is that you have to accept the fact that you have no control what media they consume, like at all.
Well, I think there's some value in, say, changing the YouTube algorithm so that not every person gets an immediate recommendation for Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson the moment they watch any political video. There's broader, like, top-level stuff you can do to keep things from skewing too far to the right. On an individual level, you can't really change what a person looks at, of course. Any effort to do so is probably going to just make them feel resentful. Like if you're a parent, you tell a kid, like, I don't want you watching any of those videos anymore. Like, of course, that just makes them want to watch them more, especially because a lot of these
Yeah.
kids already have this grievance, like victim attitude towards the world, where it's like, ah, well, the fact that she doesn't want me to see it means that my foid mother knows that I'm onto the truth or whatever. So yeah, you have to find other ways to pull them over.
Yeah. Okay. And the final one is that you have to let them choose to open up on their own volition to get them to listen to reason.
You have to introduce to them conditions that make them willing to hear what you have to say. So people are not innately rational all the time. We're more rational probably than any other animals, but that doesn't mean we're perfect at it. And we have a great investment in our preconceived biases. We have a desire to find reasons to ignore people who are telling us something inconvenient. You know, like you can imagine all the criticisms we've received in our lives, minor ones, significant ones. How often do we look immediately for a reason why we don't have to listen to them, right? Oh, that person was just a hater. They were just mad. That person just doesn't like me. They have terrible taste. What you have to do is construct conditions where you give them as few possible reasons to do that as you can. You don't want to come across as preachy. You want to come across as, in my experience, the best way to do it is to come across as kind of disaffected and confident in a way that makes them feel they need to prove their ideology to you. Or to put it another way, if you imagine you have a friend and the friend is sort of sliding down the alt-right pipeline, getting worse and worse and worse, in emphatic engagement, direct argumentation is likely to cement their positions. That's been shown by research. If you directly argue with somebody, for the most part, it tends to cement their positions because you're running their brain through an obstacle course to try to learn how to best defend what they have to say. But if instead you come across a bit dismissive, maybe even a little contemptuous, like, "Oh, you believe that? Okay, okay, right, yeah." Like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it." But if you insist, you're putting them on the defensive because now, rather than you confronting them, they're coming to you to try to change your mind. And when they're doing that, you now have way more control over the tone of the discussion because it no longer has to be combative. You can ask pointed questions. You can play off of your relationship to try to express emotional states, opinions, feelings, thoughts that resonate within them in a way that wouldn't feel as significant if you were arguing. It's like having a conversation with a significant other. Once people start raising their voices, you're having an argument. Once people are arguing, they'll say mean things to each other without really thinking about it. People are just like that. But mean things said calmly, without any provocation, hurt way more, I think, most of the time, because there wasn't some kind of buildup that led to it. They just did it. It's like that with all kinds of rhetoric. So, to summarize, because I rambled for a bit, I think they need to be ready, but their readiness is something over which you have partial but not complete control.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. So you all vaguely agree to those points. So yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with all those points. I'm just elaborating on them as best as I can.